if you're learning anything from me, is how to do all this stuff for free. Hey everybody, welcome back to Jitterbug Home Services. The issue today that I'm going to show you how to deal with is a hollow core door that's the wrong size for what you need it for. The issue that I had was it was a scrap one, a really bad cut one at a customer's house that I replaced, and I took it with me for scrap, but I kept it at my house because it's still a door, still usable, and it's the same style that we have in the rest of my house. I'm going to cut it down to fit a spot that I need a door, but the spot I have is nowhere near the correct measurement for this door, but I'm going to put it together correctly, and I'll show you guys how I do that. When you cut off a hollow core door at the top or the bottom, there's about this much solid piece in those areas that creates the structure of the door. When you cut those off, you need to replace it with something so that it's not just wide open. But we'll get to it and show you how to do all that. Alright, so the opening that I have is 75.5 tall by 31.5 wide. This door is, it was a 28 actually. Nope, this door is a 30 wide by 80 tall. So I'm taking 4.5 inches off of the bottom. I'm just cutting it down to 75.5 to match what I need. When I cut that off the bottom, this is solid right here. That's open, that's hollow. So I'm gonna end up cutting off what I need, but I'll patch in and make it work and be solid still on the bottom. This is my track saw. Actually, this is my track saw guide. I don't have a track saw, I don't have a punch saw. But this works with most circular saws, and because I'm on a budget, it's what I got for now. And it works well for what I need for now. If I'm ever rich, I'll buy a nice one. These come in super handy for this kind of stuff though, for what I'm trying to use it for. They make really straight lines, but that's not all that you need it for. Anybody can make a straight line with a saw. Mostly what you really need is to set the saw off of your surface so that it glides more smoothly and makes a better cut. Alright, this will show you guys what I meant by the saw track making life easier. So normally, I mean, you can draw a line, you can follow a little V on your saw and try to keep it straight, and for the most part it's easy to keep straight. Every once in a while, depending on the material and the blade that you're using, highly possible this thing gets hung up on something. We're just gonna use the track guide to make sure that that's not a problem, that doesn't happen. The way that this one works, this one's a Milescraft. They're a great brand. Took a little bit of learning to figure out how to use this one, but it works fine. I use it on my Makita. It also works on pretty much anything. I used to use it on my Skills brand corded saw as well, but it works pretty fantastic on the Makita. Plus the Makita saw is just a monster of a saw. So I'm going to cut, but I'm going to show you by using just one hand and barely putting any pressure on it just how easy this is to use this thing. Like I said, I'm cutting off 4.5 inches to cut this door down to 75.5 inches. I'll have to add material on that side after I straighten that side up to make the door wider. The door's already, or the handle's already cut in, and so I'm just going to use the one that's there. And my frame doesn't currently have a door with a handle on it, so there's no strike plate or anything cut in, so I'll just modify my door frame to be able to take what I'm doing. So here's cutting off that 4.5 inches. So I'll be able to show you here with the cut that I made. I had my blade set a little shallow, but that's not a big deal. Anyways, I made a cut so that you can see the hollow inside of this door, and then I'll show you the blocking that's on the bottom side of the door that's actually supposed to be in there. So this is the inside of a hollow core door. These are basically little pieces of cardboard, and it's all just built out with cardboard. That's all it is. You got a little bit of solid here and here, and when you cut those down, you have to replace that as well. That's the same thing that you see here. Right now you can see it as cardboard, but on the bottom side, it's wood. So I'm cutting just a sliver off of this side, mostly just to make sure that when I go to match up, it's going to be a straight piece, straight part right here, so that when I go to put my 2x4 on, I won't have any issues with it being straight. Obviously, make sure that the door is off of your sawhorses. If you wonder, I've done that. I've cut my sawhorses, but we're just gonna skive right down the edge of this piece just to straighten it up. Alright, so now we have my 2x4. I'm going to cut it down to the size of the door. And I'm just using the door as a guide right now because, well, the door is going to get a bit of work done to it, so it can work as a guide. This is just so I have the length correct. After I cut this, we're going to go over to the table saw and rip it down to 2 inches. So where I get my 2 inches from is the door needs to be 31.5. Right now it measures at 29.5. Add 2 inches to that, I hit 31.5. Now if it's a little over or under, it's not a big deal. I can deal with that because I'll just skive it down a little bit. But for making things easier, I'm gonna go with 2 inches, and I'll throw it on the table saw and we'll cut down that 2 inches. Come over here and we'll screw it on with trim screws, and then and you have to think about your hinges when you do that, of where you're going to put your hinges, because you don't want to put screws in where your hinges are going to go. Otherwise your router will do what my circular saw just did and hit a screw. But we're going to put it in with trim screws, I think, if that seems good at the time, and putty for any inconsistencies. And right here there's a bunch because I hit that screw and then my track went off balance. So next up, alright, so now we have my table saw out. For safety, don't plug this in until you've done all your measurements and you're ready to use it, in case somebody accidentally turns it on. So I plugged it in, and now I'm going to do my measurements before I actually use it, because I don't follow no rules. Especially my own rules. Alright. Here's the blade. Spinny spinny. Here's your fence. So we're looking for 2 inches off. It's 4 inches right now. And when you measure off, you're measuring on this side of the blade because that's the side that your wood is going on, the finished piece. So it's 2 inches right there. I don't know if you can catch it on the camera. No, it's not 2 inches. That's 2 inches. And then, just to make sure everything's uniform, I come over here on this side, measure for 2 inches, and it's not. So, there. The other thing you can do if you want to measure it from the other side of the blade is just measure it for 2 1/8 inches. Blade is usually 1/8 of an inch wide. And if you're curious, there's measurements here. But I never trust the measurements on a saw because, well, I'm untrustful of people that make this equipment, and just hope that they are safe, paid attention to the safety stuff to not get me killed. Alright, so I'm going to crank it up and we're going to cut 2 inches on this piece of 2x4. I lied. First we're going to increase the blade depth, because this thing will never make it through the 2x4. Hey, that looks better. It's probably still at 2 inches. A dull blade is a really dangerous blade, and with that knowledge, I should probably buy a new blade, because this is a very dull blade. Alright, the screws that I'm using, I said trim screws, and I just want to give you an idea of what that means. So this is a trim screw. These are white, which makes it nice for the white trim that I put in. Of course you could use brad nails for trim work, but there's a star head, and you can sink them all the way. It's a very small head on it, and so it can sink all the way into the wood and be countersunk on its own. It's also dual threaded, so it threads in and then it catches thread right there as well, just to hold it all together. So I grabbed 4 screws because this door takes 3 hinges, and what I'm going to try to do is go above the top hinge, below the bottom hinge, and on either side of the middle hinge. Now, I don't have hinges cut, so it's mostly a guess, and I'll try to work around it when I actually go to install this thing. But they're super simple to put in. Of course, when you're going into new wood, I'm going to go backwards a couple of times. You could also clip off the point, and it just keeps from splitting the wood. And what I'm going to do is hold the wood and the door together and try to keep them centered as much as possible so that it stays straight. So to show you guys the sturdiness of that, this is my first test too, so hopefully this doesn't fall apart. I don't look like a goon. But the door should, yeah, lift up just fine by that piece of wood. So that's the new side of the door. Now I have to putty the whole thing in. Once the putty dries, it has to be sanded a ton. This 2x4 needs to be planed down to match up to the width of the door, because even though it's 1.5, both of them are 1.5 thick, they're not exactly matched up perfect. That's okay. I got a planer years ago from a garage sale that I went to. It's a plug-in corded planer. I have no idea how to change the blade, but the blade's still good now. So for now, it's still good. And actually, maybe I'll plane it first. So you can obviously use a hand planer for this, but I feel like if I can use electricity, I might as well use electricity. Having a corded or a battery powered planer just takes the exercise out of planing, but the method is the same. And so this one, I have a trigger to pull, it runs a blade for me, makes life easy, but you still make a nice smooth and steady motion when you're planing. So I'll let you guys see a little bit of that, but I won't bore you with the whole thing because it's going to take a while. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not going to work. So basically what I'm doing in this, it's a 3 1/4 inch planer. 3 1/4 means how wide it is that it'll actually cut. And what I'm doing, because this is a 2-inch piece, is I'm running the blade on both the 2x4 and the door. Once I start to skiv the door, I'll know that I'm playing down straight, so I don't have to keep feeling it every time. But I'm going to keep running this thing and then flip it over and do the other side before I putty. So, DEP patching compound, weatherproof. This stuff works for wood, plastic, concrete, metal, pretty much anything. It is some of my most favorite stuff to use. I actually learned about it from a customer. So obviously I've got really big holes to fill here. It's not a big deal, especially with this stuff. I'm going to use this putty knife. This is one of my favorites. I used to use these ones a lot when I did fiberglass work on my first boat, and I just got used to them just because they kind of form to your hand. They're bendable, super flexible, and you can, putty what you need. They're really simple to use. Now I don't use this very often for customers, just because they think, I don't know, they tend to judge me by my tools. Not all of them, but some of them do. So anyways, if they don't see you with a putty knife using putty, they think that you're doing something weird. This is still a putty knife, just not as widely known for this type of work. So, but basically, apply the putty, try to squeeze it into the gaps, and also make it uniform. I'm trying to feather it as much as possible, so that I don't have too much sanding to do once it dries, but I will definitely need to sand it. This stuff, obviously, because it says weatherproof, it's interior or exterior, it doesn't matter. And it's just really good stuff. So super easy to work with as well. And it's mostly white, which is helpful for most things that I work on, because a lot of times what I'm puttying is white. So that makes life easy. Still needs to be painted, but it's paintable too. It's just that in the meantime, while it's drying, the customer, I haven't had any complaints about it being unsightly. So, putty in all the gaps, and we're going to flip it over and putty the other side. Pressed it in, you can see the putty that came through in the middle gaps. It's really good to see, because now when I press in, those two will match up and it'll become a really, really strong bond right there.
don't know if I'll make it back home.
We're gonna now cut away all of this inside pieces. We're going to find the other piece of the door that I had sitting here. There it is. And we're gonna cut the outside pieces off of this to get that block from the inside. We're gonna slide it in there. The easiest way to deal with the cardboard in here, in my opinion, oscillating tool. They're nice to have. Oscillating tool, the way that this works, and the teeth on this are completely blown out, if you can see that. This blade's about gone. Anyways, the way that this works is it moves back and forth. Here's a wider angle, but it does that really, really fast. And so what it's doing is you're pushing in and it's sawing for you. It's just a really loud tool. I'm guessing it's gonna go in about that far, the piece that I have to put in, and it's probably not gonna go in quite that far, but anyways, that's how far I'm gonna go in to cut these off. So I'm gonna cut the top and the bottom, I'm gonna fold them, see if I can rip them off. You can see here, one of them is coming out. I can just pull that one out. Like I said, it's just cardboard. The rest of them look like they want to kind of push in a little bit, which is fine too. So I can push them in or I can pull them out, doesn't really matter. But there, those ones pushed in, so that's how we'll do those. And so those are all pushed in far enough that when I cut this other piece off, I can just stick it in there and bond it to it. So instead of cutting the outside piece off of this, I decided to just pull it off because, well, it's just a small piece, so why not? So there you can see inside of that door, that's that solid piece that needs to go inside of this one. So we'll just rip this exterior part off. Obviously, cardboard again. All peels off nice and easy. Not all of it has to come off, but you need it down to the proper thickness to be able to fit inside of the door. So it's mostly the stuff on the sides that needs to come off. The cardboard doesn't matter. This piece right here definitely has to come off, but there, it's off. It's really as simple as that. So then we take it, here's the piece from the old cut, and then it just slides inside of there. And so I'm gonna put the camera down so you can watch me do it, but I have to kind of stretch the door for this. The door has to kind of bend a little bit to allow this in. Wouldn't hurt to grab a hammer or a mallet, but you know, turtle shells. I have turtle shells for hands, so that's what I use. Now, is it a huge deal if it isn't in there? No, absolutely not. My bathroom door has nothing right there because I got upset one day and just cut it off. So it doesn't affect anything. When my kid reaches her fingers under the door to spy on me when I'm trying to use the bathroom, she reaches her fingers right up inside the door. It doesn't hurt anything. But it's still supposed to be there, and to make things proper, we put it back.